Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Town of Ulysses Planning Board meeting for March 18th, 2025. First order is a roll call of board members.
Jeff McDonald.
Bart Gregg.
Carl Plankowski, Chair.
And Simon Bernard.
Since Mo is not here, I'd like a motion to make Simon a voting member tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're in. No more hiding.
Feel the power, Simon.
Yeah. All right, for tonight's agenda, we have the following items. Town board member reports. Do we have anybody, if they show up, we'll deal. Approval of the March 4th meeting minutes. Privilege of the floor. For old business items, we have the following item, Halseyville Road rezone request. Town Board Resolution 2025-58 for the proposed land donation. With related minor subdivision and comment letter on the full environmental assessment. New business item, we have the following, New York State DEC vernal pools training, and then board member and staff reports. Any amendments to the minutes? Or, oh, sorry, to the agenda, you're getting ahead of yourself here.
Good to me.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It's your turn.
All in favor?
That's fine.
Aye.
You know,
Rough.
yeah.
Let's see. Still don't see town board members, so we'll sort of pass that one. Has everyone had a chance to review the draft minutes for the March 4th meeting?
You did? We're good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
the one suggestion I sent in, but it turns out I was probably wrong. Was that the driveway on the DD4 for the business side was going to move, said it was going to move north. And I thought the discussion had been, because we talked about it possibly lining up with Agard Road, that it was going to move south. But the documents that came in today from the owner of the land, looks like they're gonna either leave the driveway where it was or move it back to the north anyhow. So the original minutes, I'm sorry, Bobby, were actually right. So we'll leave it as the driveway moving potentially a little bit north and go with that. Do I have a motion to approve the draft minutes with the north entrance?
I so move.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright. Privilege of the floor is the portion of our board meeting where members of the public may make general comments on items that are not related to items on tonight's agenda. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes in length. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on items not on tonight's agenda? I think so. How about online? We got at least one, right?
Hi there, how are you tonight?
Good.
Tyler Sherman, 5250 Cold Springs Road. I'd just like to thank you for hearing me out a couple weeks ago and being able to speak directly to you guys. I think it's the first time we've really felt heard, other than when I've spoken to Marvin and Allison Pritz directly. Even though we disagree on whether this is the right place for the park, he is concerned, they are concerned about our concerns. So I just, have a few questions. You don't have to answer them right now since I only have 3 minutes, but just about the infrastructure still on the road that's going to lead in there. Excuse me. A good point was brought up by the gentleman on my left, whether this was going to be a gravel road and what the noise and sound and dirt and dust pertains to the neighbors around there. Keeping in mind that they will need a variance because we only have 38 feet. So although people have said, oh, we only need 20 feet for a road, again, like the gentleman said, sidewalks, bike paths, because people are going to be able to need to get there. However, Cold Springs and Halseyville are heavily trafficked roads that don't have the infrastructure of bike paths or sidewalks. And how are people going to get there? That's something to think about. We will have to, a septic leach field will have to be moved. Who pays to have that moved? Is that taxpayer money, or is that money that's going to be raised by this sports park that's going to go in? And, you know, again, last week in the town board meeting, apparently there are no plans for this land. But how can zoning be changed, and how can a variance be granted if there are no plans for this land and what this road is going to service? And I'll be on this meeting. So if you have any questions throughout anything, please feel free to reach back out to me. I will be, or am available anytime. If anybody would like to come out and walk our property and really get a good look at where things are going to be and where our property line is and where the proposed road is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, anybody else? Not in online there. I see Chad Doolittle is part of tonight's agenda. I don't know who the other one is.
He's here.
Oh, he's here in person. What?
I have to log in so I can share it.
Oh, okay, so you can share your data then. And the other one, Molly, you know who the JYLL is?
They were on last time.
Hi, give me just a second.
That's
Hello,
fine.
I'm a neighbor of, I live on 5291 Cold Springs Road. I have a rotten cold, so I hope I don't cough in the middle of all this. I have sent a letter in to you people this last Friday with all my concerns. So initially, if you could take into account those concerns, I very much appreciate.
Did the letter go to the town board?
Yeah, I
Right.
had the planning board on the envelope and I dropped it off at the town of Lizzie's.
Okay, because I haven't seen it yet, but we'll ask for it, we'll look for it.
Okay, and I know there was another one dropped off about an hour previous that, so you should have 2 letters that I know of.
Okay, thank you. We will go hunt them down.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I think that takes care of everybody that we have. Now, motion to close. Privilege of the floor.
Make a motion to close privilege of the floor.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Yeah.
Let someone-
We have to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do something.
That's all right.
Well, I'll have to ask the clerk where those letters are at to figure out.
Yeah, we can ask Carissa tomorrow. I know they've been keeping a track of everything. And some comments I just found out were made on Facebook. So we don't have those hard copy, but I don't know how she's gonna pull those off.
Pull all up.
Maybe they're just funneling her.
What?
Yeah.
I expect it
The
went to
town's
town, but
Facebook page.
we'll ask.
Same thing.
Okay.
Just kind of like this.
I believe so.
For old business, we have the Halseyville Road rezone request. A proposal to rezone subject property located at 2012 Trumansburg Road from Development District 3. Bar and restaurant with a couple trailers to ag rural or to residential on the western portion of the lot. And to B1 business on the eastern portion of the lot. Planning board met on March 4th, 2025 and heard a proposal from the applicant, requested additional information. Chad, you wanna fill us in? You obviously sent us a good bit more.
Yeah. Mark, you give me permission to share. I can pop it up on the screen. Yeah, there I am. That's better. All right, again, everyone knows me, except for I don't think that you were able to make the meeting, Chad Doolittle. Nice to meet you.
I was there.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
I'm always
Mo,
here.
Mo is the one guy we're missing
Okay, I
tonight.
thought that someone was
Yeah.
either running late or not able. to-
Mo is not feeling well tonight.
Gotcha.
I know it will.
Okay, great, yeah, but we don't need to spend much time, we may go
No.
back to this overhead shot. After I show the map, just to see it.
You're still not sharing your screen.
Oh, it's not,
No.
go back. Share again.
There we go.
Okay. Okay. Alright, so we may come back to this. Slide, but I don't think we need to. Already have reviewed the lovely current state of the property. This is what we're, again, it does show it. This on my screen. So we have changed the lot lines a little bit, mostly because the wetlands or the appearance of wetlands are problematic and dominating my life currently. So we have decided to try to keep it out of the earlier phases by honoring a 100-foot setback and by not having the residential lots encapsulated. So we have ended the residential section here on Holsville Road and have expanded the business section. There's currently not much use for this swath of land as it currently lies, especially if this is delineated how it's delineated. So that will likely remain vacant for the foreseeable future. We'd also been asked about placement. Bear in mind, this is preliminary and certainly not to scale. For example, we won't have houses from side yard to side yard, but in order to make them more visible on the slide, we kind of beef them up a little bit. This is probably in terms of timing, which is on the next slide, but this is probably the first house to be built, and this is the replacement of the trailer that's currently there. This is probably the most appealing lot, it's the largest lot for sure. There's access to the stream here, but we're well beyond this little bit of federally, this is a federal stream. A FEMA indicated, yes.
Before you go on, can you make the screen larger, like Xing out the participants and then hitting the expand button all the way at the top corner?
You can't accept the percent.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah, that screen is mine,
Gotcha.
There you go.
but I can try to.
Thank you.
Oh,
Molly's
Molly's working
doing
on it.
I just want to make sure I get everything that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you able to zoom in?
I am, I just want to see what he's talking about when he's
Oh,
using his cursor.
So if you can zoom on, like, on the map and get rid of the. I'm
I
not gonna do that.
apologize. I'm just here to throw wrenches.
No, sorry.
Huh. Good old zoom.
That's sorry, on the right, yeah, now if we can drag it
Yeah, that's better, as long as I can see your cursor.
a little better, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, good. This might not be as apparent, but we are planning on some privacy plantings along the barrier to separate the residential from the business district. And I was asked about the location, which is here, and I can go back to the 3D and kind of show that in real life, the overhead map there, but this is the vicinity that we're looking at, which keeps us more than 50 feet from the road for the DOT requirements that we have. And the parking lot is further back north, as we mentioned, but I thought that the idea was to keep that away from Agard Road, so we don't have any traffic with people turning into the parking lot and left on Agard Road at the same time, or vice versa, if they're going north.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, so the idea is to,
There's really good sight distance right there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprised by.
the idea is to keep the parking lot in a similar proximity to where the building is now that's gonna be demolished.
It looks like you're gonna have to do a good amount of grading on there.
Yes, there's a steep drop off. Behind, let's go back to this. You can see. I think that's actually a good size. Right here, we've got a pretty good drop off in elevation.
Mhm.
And also kind of right here, there's another drop off in elevation, which is why we ended the residential line there. But yes, we'll have to bring up the grade quite a bit in this area here.
Do you have a proposal or a thought process for runoff?
For
Runoff?
Oh, runoff. Yeah, we are gonna have all the stormwater and the wastewater go in this direction towards the area that's already wet. Not sure.
Where's the north?
Yes, towards the
Nice, okay. So the parking lot.
Yeah, and we may be able to go toward, I've submitted the DEC, the new regulations on that is you have to submit. And then take a look at the site virtually. That process has started at your request. But that's a 90-day wait. They allow us to drain this way into the stream, and that's also a decent option.
Oh, okay.
But there's a stream right here and there could be water as well. It's less is more, a little bit less of a distance to go south here, but I just don't know what they're going to allow us to do. So again,
Is there, with your design, is there room for a swale or anything?
yes, it's definitely going to be good. So let's go.
Attention fund.
Let's go back. Have to do that.
Oh, yeah,
But yeah, there's room behind,
yeah.
and then there would be plenty of room to the north again. Where I was intending runoff to go to if assuming we can't utilize this.
Yeah. How big is the parking lot? It just from my sense. of
Yeah,
size.
this looks like it's a little bigger than the building. The building, the smallest building, and there is some info on the building. On this, but 200 by 150 feet is the absolute smallest you could go and have an usable space.
Yeah,
More likely to be closer to 200 by 300. And you're saying that's important. I don't think the parking lot will outspand the size of the building.
I mean, how many cars are you, just for my.
I would like to be able to get 30 to 40
Of cars, okay. That helps me. I would just a sense of the size, yeah.
Yeah, we just have to be sensible about how we lay the parking spaces out. And that's right.
The only thing I would say on that was gonna have overlap in times if you. Actually, if you have a field in there that people are using where people
Town doesn't
are
have
gonna
any
be coming
parking.
and going, sure, same thing. And other things that would be sure to do a drop off. And
They'll probably
building, so people will be.
Yeah, my hope is that we can have something coming and going. So jump forward on me. Coming and going kind of right here. Well, this is kind of the path of travel. We're parking back here a little bit more. Parking not gonna be made of asphalt. Again, all of these are one million.
No.
Would be
Well,
included.
we'll have some discussion.
I mean, gravel is less expensive and not as expensive to me, but it's harder to maintain in the winter.
Yeah, yeah.
And it has the same runoff as far as DEC is concerned.
What it does?
Yeah, they count it as a impervious surface. So you don't gain any by doing a gravel lot anymore. In terms of your points.
That can't be right.
That's correct. Personal
In their-
experience.
For that point of view.
They changed that.
Any more questions on this layout? before we move on?
Yeah,
So how many acres are there?
14.
For the houses?
Oh, well, we won't be able to teach them to like survey that,
Yeah.
for sure, but this is probably about 3 acres, probably one, probably not 2.5.
So it's.
so your hope is to,
And again, the lot lines here aren't accurate, we need at least 100 feet of road frontage here.
Yeah.
100 feet or 160 for the. If it gets zoned R,
Mhm.
which is residential, isn't that 160 foot width?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
160,
regulation.
yeah,
Needs to be. We have room to get 3 frontage slots in there.
160.
yeah, yeah, because there's. The original house lot to the south was a 400 foot. And then there's another good 400 foot north of that before you drop down and start getting into the wet area of that. So they should be able to.
There's
That's a
actually,
160 and a,
there's actually a culvert right here that runs water from the Alpha Another Road into this.
yeah.
area, right in here.
Well,
We
worst,
could enter.
worst case, if you had to, last year we had you move the property line for that original house lot about 15 feet north just to get the 400 foot road frontage. It could migrate back south and use that to help get your 160 foot width in that middle lot if you had to.
This is actually the current driveway for the wraps kind of up and around to this.
Yeah,
Yeah. The plan would be there's almost as if something was here at one point because there's no trees and.
Right.
Car and half width all the way down to the road, so plan would be to put your driveway in here to access this more directly.
question before we let you move on is.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have more things to say there.
Again, the intention is to bring the orange residential zoning back into this area as well. Covered that last time. In terms of timeframe, this was something I was asked to elaborate on. We want to get to work on moving the trailers ASAP, so summer of 2025. We'd probably begin the construction of new family homes with that. This lot being the first lot to develop, and then we'd be moving north, and so we'd start that process in the summer of 2025, as soon as the trailers were removed, and within a year, we'd have those single family homes constructed, moving into the indoor recreation facility in the fall of 2026. Question on timeframe?
Moving right along.
Moving right along. I mean, assuming no delay, no material delay, no.
Yeah, right, right.
DEC is not gonna hold you up for 5 months.
Okay, so in terms of the building itself, I was asked to provide a little bit more detail on that, again, preliminary stuff. But there's 2 general options for rec facilities, an air supported structure that has HVAC equipment that keeps it erect, and a steel frame structure. There are tons of advantages and disadvantages to either option. If we were to do an air source, I would like to include some sort of vestibule like this here. Dresses it up a little bit and. Well. There we go.
AI helping you out.
You think, I don't touch anything. I don't gonna touch anything. So I'd like to include a vestibule like that to address that air source. And they are capable of accepting frame structures or additions. They can be customized to work around that. The nice thing about it is it's a big space that has to be clear spanned. We don't want a lot of coast in the middle for obvious reasons. But there is a really thorough analysis that has to happen before that determination is made, but I wanted to provide the 2 directions it could go. If we do go the steel framed, like I said, there are a lot of advantages to either a steel frame structure. I would like it to be appealing and fit the character of Drimmensburg. And again, final elevations and all the construction details would be debated when we get to that part in the permitting process. Questions on this?
Yeah, what is the potential square footage that you're looking at for the building?
We are looking at like 30,000 square feet ideally, so 200 by 300 square foot building.
So that's variance.
Right, so in terms of layout, it kind of leads nicely into if. Great. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, don't touch it. These are not by any means final layouts, but we're thinking field space, some gym space, potentially yoga space, office space, and then there'll be a vestibule or some sort of area for check-in, registration, pickup, drop off. But there's a list of activities at this center benefit. Basketball, soccer, volleyball, you guys can read as well. I won't list everything there. But there are some things that we can do that TrueNerd doesn't offer now. CrossFit, I know there is some yoga studio, are some yoga studios in town, but we can offer, and dances. A lot of these activities currently utilize the school infrastructure, which is, talked about in our last meeting, is problematic for a lot of reasons. Any questions on the layout inside? We went over the benefits last time. They're also very applicable, but that covers the new materials that I added based on the feedback. Any questions that you guys have in addition to what we've already talked about? I feel like you're jumping at the bit.
Not jumping at the bit. I just want like a real building envelope and sketch plan, just so I can see all the details for each kind of zoning that you were suggesting or asking for. So the change from DD3 to business district for the sports facility, I would like to see a sketch plan and then a zoning table with all of those numbers. And then for the same thing for the ag residential on the left side for each single family home. Just to get a real picture of the actual math and if it can actually work.
So. All right, if right now, we're just trying to decide whether we should change the zoning.
Mhm.
It's not really a site.
I understand that, but we
have
can't
that.
change it to that and then this ending up not actually
Right.
physically being able
They
to
put a strip mall instead.
work. Sure, well, that would be
Yeah.
beyond a sketch plan, but yeah.
Right, I mean, I think in 2 to 3 years' time, a lot could happen in between, and I think we might be putting the cart, otherwise, what would we do? If it was,
Well, his
Nothing at
proposal
all,
is
just
this,
put it-
if these physically cannot fit into his proposal,
Well,
then why would we approve?
If the
zoning
housing
change?
lots can meet the R housing limits, the 160 foot by, they're 32,000 square foot lot requirements,
Which they can.
which they're certainly exceeding that. Then, as far as I'm understand it, I think that's really what we're looking at, is to see would it work. The business side is a little bit different, but rather than, my personal feeling on that is rather than trying to leave it as a residual part of DD3 or some other nonsense, the real advantage to me of making it a B1 business area is our zoning already provides setback requirements and all of that stuff. We don't need to go through the drill of trying to figure out everything that has to go there. Like the tree buffer he has already along the residential, the business zoning requires a 35-foot setback instead of a 15-foot side yard setback that has bushes and trees and that sort of stuff in it to screen the R residential. So I think the idea of asking for actual house sizes and that sort of stuff, I think is beyond the scope of what we need to do at this point, because if you have a R-sized lot that fits, the zoning is designed that you can fit a house and a septic and everything else and a well all in that same zone area, or ours, I guess, designed really to have.
He's gonna have to come back anyways,
Right, yeah.
so
for a
might
site
as
plan
well
review.
provide the ratio.
Well, the problem is to
Well-
put all that together is exactly what you're gonna do for houses and the rest of that stuff. it really drives out the timeline, and at this point. He needs to know, is he actually going to be able to divide this piece of property and try and make it usable? Which is what we need to provide to the town board.
My problem is that he doesn't know if he can do it, and we don't know if he can do it
Well,
without getting
We
into
don't
the
even have
map.
to look, I mean, we know he can fit the houses, right? We know that all.
If you're looking at one piece of information with frontage, but when you talk about 3 houses, the slope, the drainage. The building
It's-
envelope in
It's
its
pretty
entirety.
buildable. It's not a hard lot to build.
The-
I-
Right, that's a pretty.
But I,
flat
what I'm
lot.
saying is I want to look at the data instead of just globally.
And if it's not able to do that, we would leave it DD three. Yeah, DD one.
It's DD three.
Okay, so what if
So-
you said,
Yeah,
make it
initially-
residential? And then future. You know. Data says you can't split it into 3 lots, or you can't get 3 houses.
The whole
or whatever,
subdivision
Then what
process.
happens?
There's a subdivision process that still has to happen, which is when
Right,
that data will come into play, but.
Yeah.
In terms of putting the cart in front of the horse, a lot of this information was provided because it was asked for.
Right.
Just to help and facilitate a
to
decision.
visualize that
Right.
it is feasible.
Right.
To do it at all.
In terms of plan, you mentioned a lot of things can change over the course of 3 years. This is the plan currently, but when we get to actually hiring architects and site studies and all of that for the business portion, then we need to move the residential side ahead first. We do need, to your point, to know if this is feasible or if this should all be changed in lieu of a residential plot with no business at all. But trying to provide something that will help the community, and I hope that that's the end result, and that's the plan.
Yeah, see, I see, one thing I like about it is that the B1 is being, if we zone it B1 and residential. The B1 tells the people that are buying the houses, they're going to have a B1 behind them. End of
Yeah.
story. And your trees will be really nice. Yeah.
Right.
So, it will help you sell the houses, so that's important. And just so that's good. And yeah, and I'm back to what it actually looks like at the end of the day. We have a whole nother discussion.
Right, that's,
Yeah.
there's a platform and a process for that.
Right, so
For the houses and we're not, and they all come back.
That is-
Yeah.
here's a question, I guess, direct question, Mr. Doolittle. If we rezone the. Western half to R. And then you get into the project and find out you can only put 2 houses on there for whatever reason. Does that stop your process, your progress towards the business side, or?
If it's.
Because I understand you're trying to finance the business side
Sure.
from the residential,
Right,
so I'm just,
there'll be a degree of financing aside from this project that needs to be derived. I have confidence in my credit and my ability to raise capital that this will proceed regardless of 2 or 3 lots. I don't think that a project that size can be determined by. So it's worth $500,000, unfortunately. It's a big one of that.
Are there, that you know of? I guess, I wanna say legal requirements or zoning restrictions that. Would stop us from recommending the split into an R and a B1. I guess there was some issue about the B1 not being in line with the comprehensive steering plan.
The comp plan, yeah, so the request to rezone the eastern half to B1 is will be a hard lift. As it currently stands,
it's gonna be a hard lift, you said?
yeah, because it's. And I don't see that there are policies, goals and other things of that land use designation, which is agricultural priority area. That supports the B1 zone. Now. If board members can find that, I mean, that's what you guys are charged with to the recommendation of the town board. I don't see that, so I would believe that as part of that request, the town board would need to amend that land use designation to something that supports the B1 zone. I'm not sure if they're gonna want to do that at this stage, given where we are with the comp plan. They may want to punt to the comp plan steering committee to mull that over as far as the comp plan update.
Okay.
Um,
I'm confused, so. Because of the land, okay, because of the 2009 land use as opposed to looking at what zoning currently is.
correct. So that,
Because if you look at the zoning as it currently is, there's B1 on either side of it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't want to open up a whole can of worms and
Oh, okay.
sidetrack, but the 2019 rezone, townwide rezone has a lot of issues of non-compliance with the 2009 comp plan, which is unfortunate. Business zones, development districts, we're all down that.
years between.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
I mean, moving forward, the town should not be making those same mistakes. So, I mean, the request as proposed can still go forward again. It's then on the town board to say, do we want to change the comp plan designation at this time or not?
okay, so it's being driven because of combine, doesn't,
Right,
even though it may be more consistent with current zone,
right.
Which
okay.
means that it could, I think you alluded to this, extend his timeline quite a bit, at least on the B1 part.
So the comp plan is expected to be amended or approved at the end of this year. I mean, best case scenario is it should be adopted by the end of this year.
But that moves everything in his back by a year.
Correct.
Well, at least you get the DEC
Well,
all
yeah.
the way. in.
So
Okay,
can we
what if
just,
you made it all R?
That is, so previously I sent 5 options. Only 4 of those are
Yeah.
viable. The last one was a conditional rezone, which Nate says is we can't do here in New York State. So yes, one of the things you could do is rezone it either all AR or R. I'm kind of agreeing with Simon in the sense that not so much asking for a survey to be done, but a more thorough sketch plan for the applicant to show these are the lots I'd like to get with an R zone, but and show out the lot dimensions, the building setback area for potentially where those homes could go, and what if it was zone B1 where that building envelope would go as well. And then also do that for the development district. That's going to be really easy because there aren't any setbacks or anything for the development district.
Yeah.
But then also do it for the AR because the entire surrounding area is AR. And I have a feeling that the town board members may want to just lie more to the AR. So I think for the planning board, so the charge for you is to provide as much information as possible to the town board to make their job easier.
Which is what I want.
So I would agree with Simon to get that information up front, just to show what is all potentially possible before you guys make a recommendation of either rezone the whole thing AR or R, or split it. The other option is to split it to either AR or R, and probably the best case scenario is leave it as DD3 for now. And you could potentially do a code amendment to say that sports facilities are a permitted use. A lot of it might just be punting down the road, unfortunately, for the comp plan.
Yeah,
Well,
it sounds like we're just pumping. And,
yeah.
We're talking 3 residential lots other than septic, which I assume you already looked at to make sure you could fit 3. There's really nothing there that's gonna be an issue. That site is not hard to develop.
is there an option to leave this DD3?
That to just, that's sort of what came up once before, was to leave that as DD3 and just do a simple land division to break off the 3 residential lots and leave the rest as DD3. With the current, well, I don't know if we could leave it as with the current stuff in DD3 that had the trailers and all that kind of stuff in there.
All right, so that's where I'm kind of lobbying the last option that we can't do. If you leave it as, if the town leaves it as DD3 with amendment to say that sports rec facilities are permitted use, that kind of gives him at least some assurance that the town agrees with that process moving forward.
That's phase three.
Yeah.
We need to take care of phase 1 and 2.
Yeah, but if the town doesn't give you any assurance, then. Right, phase 3 is a non-starter.
And it could be farmland,
So we did,
which nobody's ever gonna use.
That's
Right,
Right, which is
Right.
silly. I mean, why would we kick that down the road instead of having the town board, getting an opinion out of them?
Right,
Right.
I think we should make the town board offer an opinion.
I don't disagree with that. What I do. But I also agree with Simon in that in order to get it to the town board and give them. Solid ground for making that decision or opinion. We need more information. I understand, Mr. Doolittle, but what we're just talking about and discussing is gonna cost you more money out of pocket up front before you can really make or cover any investment. We fully understand that. We're trying to make it
It'll save you time down the road though.
See,
easier. Yeah,
Maybe,
Maybe, it may be an investment that goes for naught.
right.
especially if I put all this into them, it's just.
But-
Deemed not feasible, even if it is feasible, which, if I have to downsize the size of the sports facility, yes, I'm gonna go out and try to get the biggest sports facility we can get. If we have to downsize,
Sure.
there's 14 acres there. Not all of it's usable, but the amount that is usable, these items can fit on comfortably with a lot of space. I think we're confusing the actual permitting process with this process, which is just to rezone. We started down this road, we all specifically said, don't put subdivisions in there. We only want to talk about zoning. Don't provide too much information. Provided more information, help visualize only. I said several times throughout the presentation, that it's not final, and this is preliminary. Even if we invest with an architectural firm, again, it's just preliminary plans. It's not final until we actually get to the permitting phase.
that's my feeling too, because. Looking at zoning and everything that we want to do along 96, it makes sense for it to be. And then to keep Halseyville. That all, and it all comes to a point.
Right.
Here.
well, because the,
Yeah, and looking at it, not even with what can fit, but hopefully something nice residential will fit on the left, on the Halseyville side.
there's certainly room for 3 house lots
Sure.
on that side.
Yeah,
And even if the septic system requires an acre of ground, he's already got that much in each of the 3 lots to do that.
right.
That
We can,
side,
look what we can grab on the lake shore. I'm sure we can do it.
right, yes,
Right.
but for me, and I went through the comp plan looking for things like this sort of stuff, because in the current comp plan, they have this transitional business district that runs from the fairgrounds, which is the village of Trumansburg's property line, all the way to Park Road, right to Gigantic Boulevard. That's where all those businesses are in there already. The grocery store on one side, Kenny Drugs on the other side, and all of that.
Right,
We're talking about essentially extending that transitional zone across the valley. You already have Flowtech at the beginning of that road. It's got its own, I think it was done as a DD, it's DD9, is that what Flowtech is?
Yeah.
I didn't think.
Yeah, DD9.
DD9, but you've got Stover Lumber about a half a mile south.
yeah.
You've
and
got
that's-
PNS, excavating around the corner on Agard Road about a half a mile over. I don't know who we're kidding about what, this is essentially a business district
Right.
already along 96. And whether the comp plan, and that's why I was showing you guys this, because the comp plan, whoever put it together to show all of that ag or all of that ag priority nonsense, totally ignored the existence of the Water District 3. It's completely green if you look in that comp plan thing, and it's
It's not
on your
computer.
Oh, hiding back there, yeah, because the comp plan tries to show that the town of Ulysses, everything except the lakefront is supposed to be ag priority. That's baloney, because the water district was built around 2002, 2003. This comp plan was done in 2009. They totally ignored that. They totally ignored the zoning that was in effect at the time, which had all the rural residential and all that sort of stuff. These properties have been divided since a lot of them, the sixties, seventies, eighties, nineties, long before the 99 comp plan, let alone the 2009 comp plan. And to come back in 2009 and try and claim we're gonna make all of this ag priority, when we got all these houses throughout the town already and everything in the water district and that, it's bullshit, is what it really is.
And-
You know?
and we
No,
keep-
it's aspirational.
There's houses going up. Good farmland all
There
over.
was no way in the world you were
That's
gonna
a little
convert that back to
triangle of
farmland.
nothing.
Right. Can you clean that up?
And so to use that as the driving point to say that we've got to keep this as ag. This was separated from the ag area in 1979, long before the town of Ulysses ever had a comp plan. It has not been an ag area in damn near 50 years. So to try and claim that it has to be an ag type area now instead of a business area, I think is baloney. And whether we can legally recommend that or not, I would like to figure out how to feed it to the town board to say, these are the reasons why. Trying to make this, keep this as some sort of ag priority area
Right,
is nonsense.
right.
You know, but I worked on this, close to midnight, working through this stuff to try and get an idea. You know, the residential side on Halsey certainly makes perfectly good sense. You've got 3 residences already across the corner on the other side of 96, just as you come
Right
up the
there.
hill. You've got more residences as you continue down Halseyville Road.
Yeah.
And you get down there and you get to Cold Springs Road and it's all residences down there,
Yes.
you
When you
know.
break it down to just residential on the west and some sort of business on the east, I mean, I have no problem with that. I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, I have no
Right.
problem.
And
But what does the town need? The town board.
Well, yeah, what's the town's
To
legal requirements?
go
is the
that
issue,
way.
yeah.
right,
What do they
It's-
need to
It's
make?
DD, it's a DD, it's already a business zone. So
Yeah.
we're just asking to rezone it officially as B1.
The zone right now is bar, restaurant, trailers, all of those things will be removed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
you know, the last owner tried to do a bar restaurant there and found too many obstacles to make it happen. She put 6 months of effort into it and said no, right? So
We're
it takes,
taking some more.
but if we have to leave it as DD3, that western half, then we gotta come in
You'll have a
with.
bar on the front of the field.
This is where the parents hang out.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
but I think we would have to go back in then and modify the requirements for that development district, right?
So option 3, right, leaving it DD3 with an amendment to allow sports facilities, do you not think that might be the easiest?
It probably is the easiest.
Are there other restrictions in the
yeah, there's
DD?
no residents allowed.
What's
No,
that?
no,
sir?
Oh,
no,
we'd
we
still
have to
have to
cut off,
divide.
that. Yeah, cut
Yeah.
off that and leave the other,
Are there any other limits in the DD? Because some of the other ones have stopped that.
Well, each DD has its own set of limits that
Just
we
one
would
was
end
there.
up defining.
Right.
and we've modified them.
They're
Yeah.
essentially spot zone because they weren't aligned with anything at the time. So they're their own specific area.
I do think, if I'm hearing the discussion, like your overarching recommendation to the town board could be, you recommend that the western half be zone residential, eastern half be zone non-residential for the purposes of the sports complex, and then maybe go through the two different options and kind of flesh those out and see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's a good
That's
point.
good-
The two different
Give them
options
2
being-
options and let them.
Two different options, I think, would be to rezone the western half to R and leave it as DD3 with a code amendment to allow that use.
Right.
The other one would be to rezone the whole thing R.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
I don't want it to remain DD3. I just want this to be a fully fleshed out plan before we sign off on this stuff.
The problem is that it takes somebody like myself to take a risk on a property like this and go through all the steps, but there comes a point where it's enough of an investment where the realization of the end goal becomes potentially too much to overcome, right?
Yeah.
Consultants are not cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, I think certainly doing a property division to allow you to break off the obvious residential part. I think is fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
It's how we define the other part to make it work within either our current zoning or in our current comp plan. Which my feelings aside.
so if we left it all R, converted to all R, that's an easy.
That's an easy fix because it complies with the comp plan.
But
But but then, after the comp plan's done, and we see that you recommend that there be more B1 along it, can we then modify it?
See, that's where
I
I
don't think
think,
you'd wanna bother changing it, the zoning, cause then that's just another.
right, my,
Well, usually we find something after, it may be a few years.
Well, I mean, I don't wanna change it from residential, you'd wanna change it from, I think the idea is to get rid of all the DD zones.
Yeah, so
It's-
We have an opportunity to get rid of one right now.
we go to the town with R on the western half.
hmm,
And the eastern half, give them the choice of, our recommendation is it either remains DD3 with an
With
amendment,
amendment,
or they rezone it to B1.
B1.
right,
And they certainly have the power to do the rezone.
you know,
They can decide that comp plan notwithstanding, they are going to make it B1 and. You know, I would like to provide like the list of reasons that you've already got a transitional business zone that brings you all the way up to Kingswood Creek. You know, and we're talking about another 500 foot down the road. You've already got DD9 with Flowtech in the corner there. You got Stover Lumber just down the road. You got, you know, the other one over there is actually about a 300 acre piece of ag ground that has his business on it that's not defined as a business. That were.
Can that information, can all that information be included in your recommendation?
Well, that's what I
I
would
think
like
that's
to
what
incorporate in
Stock's
there
about
as
saying.
kind of a,
Look at the current state as opposed to
Yeah.
just 2009.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, either
Aspirations.
separate, do a land division to break off the western side from DD3 and make it residential, regular R residential, so that we don't have the 400 foot road frontage and you can only fit 2 properties in there max.
What is the thought process on, like, what is the current comprehensive plan process leaning towards with regards to this region?
We haven't got that far on the comp plan revision yet. We're just, the first public meeting is tomorrow. Just still trying to hammer out the. What is it?
still in outreach mode.
Yeah,
We're
a
still
lot
in
of outreach
outreach
stuff. We haven't gotten into any of the chapters yet or anything like that that's gonna get into all of the rest of this. And that's why I'm saying I hope we don't make the same mistake again that they did in 2009 and this aspiration, well, the whole town is going to revert back to ag when 50% of the town has already been converted to residential.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense, but it got there and that's the way it is.
So can we change it to R of the residential side without any problem versus AR?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's compliant with the comp plan.
Even though it doesn't have water over there or sewer.
The distinct, so the R zone, not. We haven't done an analysis, but I think there's very few R zone properties that actually have water and none of them have sewer. The only sewer is in the village.
Yeah, because the other 3 are sitting right across there, across 96 already are.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long
They
they've
are,
been
okay.
there. I don't know if that was been there for
They're old houses.
40
most of them.
years or,
Mhm.
you know, or relatively new. But anyway, the other ones
Certainly be bigger than this one.
up Halseyville Road, they are, I expect that's AR type essential zoning that they have the 400-foot road. for.
Well, right across from AR though, it's AR.
Right.
In Baker Road, yeah.
Yeah.
96. Not wrong for this road.
Well, there's two big houses right across in the corner
Yeah,
of
there's
Agar that,
The beauty barn is here, I think, and then
Yeah.
their residents in Lyman.
yeah, but when you start down Agar, you got that big house in the corner and a second house next to it.
Right here,
It shows as one house lot, but there's physically two houses there.
Now, and if we put a business and we have plans for a D1, I think doing, in my mind, the R makes sense. Because, you know, it's a smaller scale type house than the
Right.
ag type that were, you know, the AR types.
What if you
Yeah.
subdivided the property
What's
first?
that?
What if you subdivided the property first?
Before we rezoned it,
Mhm.
that was,
Well, then,
That's in, he would have to subdivide it in DD3. It needs to be rezoned.
I was instructed to rezone before we considered subdivision.
yeah,
In fact, we didn't have the subdivision lots on there until this meeting, just visual.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you're stopping the housing where you are to stay out of the wetland area, and that no matter what DEC comes back with, certainly simplifies it, because you'd have to do a lot of fill down in there anyway to deal with it. And so that keeps it very straightforward. They're very buildable pieces of ground. So the R side, I think, is very straightforward. And the three houses, three lots in there, you know. For the other aspect, for me, of adding essentially three housing lots without taking anything out of the farmland, because this has been out of farmland for more than
Right.
50 years, that you're not going out on some other farm field and taking out, you're adding three building lots. And they're close to town, they're close to the grocery store and everything else like that. They're really desirable for home sites.
There's a, trailer right here, it's dilapidated, it can't be lived in.
Right.
That was a residence.
But
And they are well, or is there water? There's water?
there's no,
There is a well, but
there's a well.
they're gonna have to have their own wells and that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, there'd be three separate wells, three separate, sure.
Yeah. And that's why keeping the lots big enough so that there's room for a septic
And still
leach field and
keeping,
that kind of stuff with each one is, and not a problem.
and still keeping the lot line of 100 feet from this. So
Yeah.
let's figure out what it is, and then you can't physically put a septic
Septic
system
in there. Yeah.
within 100 feet of.
Yeah. So you're gonna end up with that open end that's open there right now anyhow, no matter what you do with it. But I think
Unless
for
you can
us as
convert it
the
to a
planning
cistern
board,
for your water.
I think, yeah, recommending the split like he's looking for, and then either. You know, put our reasons together why we think B1 makes more sense than leaving it as DD3, but if we need to leave it as DD3 to deal with the. Comp plan and that sort of stuff, then a modification of DD3 to allow the sports facility in there. Would be, I think, a good solid recommendation to provide to the town board.
Mhm.
And I think giving them the option to look at that business side from the two standpoints.
After
is-
the conference.
Well, either after the comp plan or they just decide to make the change. I don't know when they would do this or what they would have to do this anyway. But I think giving them a solid recommendation to go on.
Give them the reasons behind it.
Yeah, and, you know, that's why I sent this to Niels, but I didn't share with the rest of you. I figured I was looking for, you know, independent. You guys looking through the comp plan and trying to figure out your ideas of how you would support this, which is really what we need to put together, you know. Go down through, I'm perfectly willing to email all of you guys what I've already done. I've got the paragraph numbers and everything else that walks you through the comp plan to go look at and see if see if I'm out in left field. It's not surprising. I'm a newbie. You know, 3 years of residence in the town and I've lived all over the US, so my slant on life is a whole lot different
Yeah.
than most folks.
Yeah. Okay.
But as far as drafting a resolution, that was my request. Like, if you guys can parse through everything, use that cheat sheet or comment sheet that I drafted, fill that out in advance, and I can start throwing together.
So do we do a resolution in addition to that, filling in that sheet?
He would use the info from what we put on our versions of that sheet to create a resolution.
A resolution, okay.
So he's really looking for inputs, you know, justification
the
that we do
resolution.
that, yeah, before we do the resolution. to
Okay.
get- And get more than one person creating this resolution, and that's the idea, but when I get home, I will email you guys what I've done as kind of a starting point. And it drags you into all the different sections on the comp plan and
But this is a resolution or is
no,
it just?
this is
okay,
just
question.
his form to fill out.
That's the form.
The
Okay,
form,
gotcha.
but under
Okay.
each paragraph, just start putting in your justifications for it,
Right.
for that paragraph. And just simply work your way down through and use the comp plan to
Right.
that and the, I would say the current zoning and the physical reality of what's in the area and this sort of stuff is put all that
Thank you for
together.
doing that.
Yeah, I'll send you what I did, but look through, and you guys have a lot more experience, a lot more time in the town than I do to look at it and say, you know,
Okay.
no, that's not right, you can't do that, that's good, there's one of me and 4 of you, or I'll include Mo on this because there's 5 of you, you know, we're all equals in this mess. But I think putting it together to provide Neil's a starting point to cut and paste, to attempt to create you know, I think we're all in the idea and then certainly I got the feel from the town board that they would like to see something done with this piece of property. You know,
Okay.
right now,
But Simon, how do you feel like so you want it to not be DD3, so are you okay with giving that as an option along with the B1?
Giving residential as an option? along
No,
with-
residential and.
split the
or
residential and then what you do with the other half of the lot.
Is either DD3 or a residential again.
Are you saying zoning it as 2 different zones? You're just saying
Right.
blanketly, this is going to be residential and this is going to be DD3
Something.
with an acceptance of business.
Yeah, or B1,
Or B1.
regular B1 business.
Any indication on the comp plan and the future zoning as to what's gonna happen?
No,
To
not-
the
not-
DDs?
96.
has not gotten that far yet.
Okay, so nobody's talked about what happened to the
No.
old DD switch.
No,
I suppose when you word it like that, sure, but with the caveat of, I personally feel like this is not thought of through. The actual plan.
Well,
The
okay, so
process.
tell me more about that.
Yeah.
What part hasn't been?
Well,
thought
he's
through?
shown these, no offense to you, but there's. I just need more data, more understanding of the project from a numbers perspective. Like I realize that sure, there are many acres and you could throw some houses on there of boxes that aren't to scale. And it could look like 3 houses can fit, but is that real? What is the actual setback? Does that work with a well and a septic tank for each property with the grading? Where's the runoff going? Is the amount? I could get into it a lot, but I feel like from a planning perspective. And as a planner, I need more information.
I agree with you. That being said. If we were to say, okay, yeah, our recommendation is to make the western half R. The next step then does
Is for him
involve
to
him
figure it out,
providing
yeah,
all
right.
that stuff. And
Yeah,
if he
that's why
can't
I'm saying. I
satisfy the
understand.
planning board with that. And the permitting process with that,
Sure.
then,
I just don't want that property to be,
right, but he's taking a risk. Himself, right, in saying, all right, I want this. I mean, he's gotta balance this, I want this, with how much money he's willing to put out.
but
to
that's
prove
not our
those-
responsibility. Thing.
Right. No, right.
It is though.
But
It is,
it-
because
It is,
If
No,
you get-
we're
if
supposed
you
to think
get
of the town as a
unreasonable-
whole, not a single
if you
person.
get unreasonable in terms of what you ask people to come in with early on in the process,
I don't-
and it's early on in the process, you're talking $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 to sit down and have a consultant do that. That's a lot of money for people.
I don't think that's unreasonable if you're talking about a construction project. I think
I
you
think
should,
that's a lot of money. I mean.
I
we're not
understand
talking-
that, but
We're not talking, a
Yeah.
major financial institution or a big
it's also a
corporation.
major
coming in
change to
do
the
that.
town.
Right,
It's 3 houses.
so let me ask you this,
Sorry, you guys
If-
go to a person's house or property for a single family home, but this is too much to ask for.
No, I'm not gonna argue that.
I've said my
What
piece
I
and
wanna
I'm done.
talk about is this, though, trying to give you perspective and trying to understand your perspective. Say we give say we recommend to the town that this becomes B1 DD3 with an amendment, whatever, and residential over here. And for whatever reason, I mean, a new COVID virus, whatever reason, Mr. Doolittle says, I'm bailing on this project. Are we hurt as a town?
If it's, yeah, right.
How?
No,
not.
we're not, I agree.
Yeah.
We're not,
Well,
that's
no.
why, yeah, that's why you have to, I think you have to step back before it. Just leaving it as it is, regardless of what projects are gonna go in there, is it better off to be a residential on that side and a business area on the other?
In general,
And I
I would say, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
would say yes, true,
Yeah.
regardless of what.
Does
And-
that help
and-
you?
Yeah, so I'm saying I understand the rezoning, but this specific project is what I have questions like.
And we all do.
If I were to rewind, then I suppose if that's giving you pause, then I would have not specified the sports facilities, what the design is, but that's what's most beneficial to the community and what I'd like to provide, but if it is a business, it's not a sports facility, still better than a dilapidated building.
Right.
We've been
Because
talking
at
about
this
parameters
point,
for a long time.
You got the competition for the two ugliest things on 96 are the junkyard about 3/4 mile south
And
or
this,
this property.
yeah.
How
You
about the
know?
junk?
I have no idea, but they're right up against the road and everything else.
Yeah.
So doing anything with the property, minimum, getting rid of the building that's
Right.
getting ready to fall down, at least internally and externally, and 2 old trailers would be a good running start on improving
Right.
the view coming into the town.
Right.
And there's a lot.
I'm a little concerned with your concern about whether the houses will fit. If our zoning says that an R lot has to have 32,000 square feet. And it's gotta be at least 160 foot wide and 200 foot deep. And you've got about 800 linear feet along that road from the creek to where he's cutting it off right now. Okay, the math says 3 times 160
I would like to
is
see the map.
480
I don't
feet.
want to just talk about the map. I want the map to be on paper.
Break up. I use my engineering rule and
That's
I
not the
take
point.
what he
If it's
already
on
has
paper,
on
then He
there.
has to follow it.
No,
No, I don't
he's
know.
not, he's here for zoning, he's
Right.
not here
Zoning.
for
I can put anything
subdivision.
on it.
I've said what I have to say.
Okay,
I'm done.
so I think I kind of agree with Simon in this, that before I would recommend a rezoning, I want to know exactly where the delineations are. Then that would tell us, or Mr. Doolittle, but again, Simon, we have to remember, we're looking at 2 things, first zoning, then development.
Sure.
And if he says, okay, these are exactly the boundaries I'm looking for zoning, and we say, fine, rezone them. Then he decides to roll the dice, put more money into it, and finds out he can't put 3 septics on there for whatever reason, right? Or,
Right,
okay,
the Ds. and-
that's not gonna hurt, in my opinion, it's not gonna hurt us as a town. Because nothing's done. He is gonna have to go through the permitting and come back here and talk to us about what the buildings look like and the parking and all that. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand the process.
Okay, so in order to rezone though, somebody's gonna require him to put those numbers on the map.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. I don't
No,
know.
he's gonna come back in here for
Yeah.
subdivision.
For
Right.
subdivision.
Right,
We
we're
have
gonna
to
see
approve it.
those.
Yeah, right, the site plan, we have to
Once-
agree with. Yeah,
Once it can be rezoned, then I can invest the money into the surveyors to do the
Right.
surveys, and I can begin all
Right.
of that process, and I can fund the money to demo what's there, which is expensive and requires an asbestos survey, and goes on and on and on. It's, it becomes quite extensive. Like you said, I'm not a large financial institution.
Right.
Okay. Next step.
Well, I think we board members need to put together our inputs to create a resolution that we can provide to the town board with our reasoning behind it for essentially splitting this into a residential area. And if we need actual linear footage down the road, I think you already know where the cutoff point is and that sort of stuff. It's roughly 800 foot down there out of the 1,300 foot. And the depth of the lot was like 290 or something on the original one. Anyway, those dimensions so that you've got actual numbers to look at. And then we need to, I think, a two-prong approach for the business side, either B1, and these are the reasons why we think it should be B1, or if that doesn't fly, then we have to go to DD3, a residual DD3 with these modifications.
Right.
So for the next meeting, we'll have one of those questionnaires filled out by giving our feedback, upgrades to it.
Yeah, each one of us needs to get inputs to Neil in time to put it together as sort of a draft
it'll be a
resolution.
resolution.
Right, in a draft resolution form, so that he can do that.
Okay,
So really,
So we
that's
need
what we're
that.
looking, we need, our homework is to sit down and go through it. And
when should we have it done?
And is there any way we can have approximations in terms of dimensions?
I don't need them.
well, I think you've already sort of got them.
So what did we put as a,
When somebody else goes in to do a development, right, and something's already zoned. They don't have to invest money in providing things to get you to zone it that way, right? I mean, they're going into an area that's already zoned.
Right, right.
And they know that what they can put in there.
Right.
They just have to apply zoning to it.
Right.
Here, you're asking him to make an investment to show you that it can do residential, right? Because that's what we're talking about, 3 residential lots.
No, I'm not talking about 3 residential lots. I'm just saying, what are the general dimensions of zone, call it B1 and zone R? That's all I'm asking,
oh,
is
we have-
approximate,
don't we have
plus
that?
or minus, I don't know, 10, 20 feet, whatever.
Don't we have that already?
That's on the survey.
Do we already have that?
It
Yeah.
has the dimension.
We had it the
Depth.
last
Okay,
meeting
well,
already.
I apologize
So,
then.
yeah.
No, we've got that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for another dollar.
I think
That other
Simon
stuff's gonna
wants to
come later.
see the area of the buildings as a percentage of the area of the lots,
Yes.
which will happen. But
Right,
in my opinion, should not happen
Okay.
before a zoning decision.
Mhm. Right,
okay.
so we're good. Okay, so we'll have this stuff to you by when, so it can be a resolution.
If you want, if you want to discuss it on April 1st,
Do we have time?
Really?
Yeah, that's our next meeting.
can you get it to me at least by the, say the 26th? That's Wednesday. Gives a
I'll
little
give you
over-
guys at least my running start on this, kind of the general
That's great.
idea.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's a
go
good
from
idea.
there.
Yeah,
So as part of that, I'll just echo what Carl said earlier about the issues with the last comp plan and especially what water lines. So I'm not sure when the town acquired MRB to do a water study analysis, but I'm gonna guess it's around 2013 because they put out a study with a map of water lines and everything in 2015, including what the village has. So this area along Trumansburg from roughly Falls Road down to Cold Springs Road is a village transmission line for water. So that entire corridor is expected and planned to have municipal water. So just kind of putting that out there to keep
That's
that
on
in
the
mind,
business side though, right?
No,
both sides.
Okay.
and they gotta get people to pay.
okay, so we need this to you by the 26th. All right,
Yeah,
all right. I think we beat this one to death. Thank you for your patience.
You're welcome. I understand the process going forward though, because I'm not sure.
Okay, we have to, we, the planning board, have to provide a recommendation to the town board.
Right.
For what we think and with our justification for how we would recommend splitting this lot, the rezoning on it.
Got
And then the town board meets and decides if they're actually gonna go through with the rezone.
Yep.
Because the rezone requires a public hearing and they've gotta go in and legal changes and notifications and all this kind of stuff. You're probably talking a good couple months to try and get it done. If we get it into the town board by say mid-April, they have two meetings, either the second Tuesday or fourth Tuesday of the month. So it's very likely gonna end up the end of April before the town board really seriously looks at it.
I was more wondering the process of making the recommendation. I understand the time frame is not fast. But once you fill out the form that Niels has asked for, do you come back together and make a recommendation and vote on that recommendation?
Yeah.
Or-
That's what we're hoping is that on the first of
Yeah.
April, we could vote on a resolution
Okay.
to send to the town board with our reasons behind it, to get it back into their court, to let them start working their part of it. And,
And that resolution will be public at the April 1st meeting or?
yes. It'll be part of the agenda coming out for it. Well, I don't know, do the draft resolutions, not until we vote on it, right?
Not to vote.
Right, once we vote on it, then it will certainly be included in it. But at this point, we're trying to honor your wishes of creating a residential zone and a business zone. In
Appreciate
one
that.
form or another.
I appreciate that.
You know, I certainly agree, it would be a much better entrance to the town to have a functioning series of homes and a business than what we've had for the last decade or more.
I think we can all agree it's underutilized right now.
Does anybody know where the bull went?
Someone stole that.
Yeah.
And it was, someone stole that, it was Buddy the Bull, and it was at the school for a while, like a anti-drunk driving
Yeah.
campaign. Someone stole the bull from the front of the school and no one's.
Probably in Romulus or something.
All right, now where am I at on this stuff for tonight here?
I had figured I was keeping things over his garage for a while.
This is, there's a definitions page.
I'm gonna give it another
Thank you all.
Yes.
Thanks.
For zoning definitions, there is.
Each section of, each area of zoning, like the R, and
He's been on.
there are different articles. That covers each one, has dimensions within that.
I know, I'm looking for definitions.
So it's under Article 4 of the zoning code. Section 22.
All right, now where am I at? So that was the old business, that part. Let's see, oh, the other, where's the piece on the,
Within zoning.
Things about doing with the EA or the environmental impact statement for the town.
Not on there. I thought I got that on there.
I jumped from this and old business to new business.
Oh.
Anyhow, we need to get into the, I think I'm missing a page.
B.
Right, B on the agenda is
Right.
the environmental impact.
So at the last meeting, the board decided to not challenge the lead agency. So we're good on that one. So comments on the FEAF are due by April 3rd. So one of the other requests I asked for you guys is to, if you have the time to go through the FEAF and submit comments. We do have one more planning board meeting on the 1st, so there's still time to mull that over if you want to, and just, we can continue this until the next meeting if it.
So I have a question. It's kind of a continuation. My concern from last time is that the EAF says that, you know, it's for development of a park. But there's things in the EAF that are given that are gonna happen if it's a park that aren't filled out on the EAF, like traffic, you know, potential for buildings that could be there, you know. There's a bunch of things that like parking runoff from parking. It's not like you're gonna go in and just mow what's there and have a field to use. So there's a level of development with making it any kind of a park, including the driveway parking, that is not assessed in the EAF that I think should be assessed in the EAF, given what the EAF says it's for.
Okay, so my understanding from having some discussions with legal, or at least on the periphery with legal, is that at this stage, what the assessment is for is just for the land acquisition and for the related subdivision that needs to happen for that acquisition. There'll be further analysis of the needs of the community for the park, along with development that'll happen separately. But if that's a concern for board members, then you should definitely put those comments in there to the town board.
I think that there's, even though you can't quantify them, because you don't know what you're gonna do, that it's being acquired for a park. So unless you're just gonna let it grow up to trees and not do anything with it, there's a set of impacts that are gonna happen that you can't assess, but they should at least be mentioned in there.
Yeah, like, yeah, I thought that when we did the site, like, there could be a site plan review at some point, right? When they actually lay out and show what they need to, that's when we do the environmentals.
Yeah, I think that's when you
Yeah.
can assess those impacts, but I don't
Oh,
think
okay.
that we should, the
Ignore it at
property
this
should be
point.
acquired without those. Because we know there's gonna be some things, right? We know there's gonna be, if you're actually gonna develop it, there's gonna be grading. And there's gonna be runoff, and that runoff's gonna have to go, there's gonna be stormwater,
Right.
you know, questions, and I don't think you need to, you can't assess them, you can't guess, but. You know, you can kind of say, we're, you know, this is gonna happen, and. You know, at some point, it's
Yeah.
gonna have to go through. Speedies and, you know, stormwater and everything else for permitting and. Things, because I don't know how you acquire it and say, well, it's gonna be a park, but there's not gonna be any parking there. We know there's gonna be parking there.
Mhm.
Well, I think we should probably then use the sheet that Neil sent us already, and it has a series of questions like that to work your way through each of the sections. And put down your concerns and feed them back to Neil's again, same by the 26th of March, just like the other one. And put it together so we can provide a resolution if we need to, what our concerns are on this to the town board at the next meeting then. Is that doable for you guys? I don't know what your personal schedules are. Bart, you're shaking your head.
It might be, but I'm gonna need somebody to feed me some links that I can read. For instance, sir, thank you for bringing that up. I don't mind doing it. You know, I need some guidance as to where to go. That's a perfectly great question. At first, when you were talking about it, I was thinking, what's the difference between this and just be with you in a second. Between this and what we were just talking about with Mr. Doolittle, in this case, well, in Mr. Doolittle's case, he's taking the fiscal responsibility. In this case, the town is,
Right.
you know, responsible for it. So we ought to know what those potentials are up front.
Yeah.
And
when we normally do a subdivision, it's according to zoning. Which is in place, which has already assessed the likely impacts
right,
for anything in compliance with the zoning, right? You still have to do seeker, but
Yeah.
hopefully, you know,
Right.
zoning has
It would
looked at
be,
those
yeah.
impacts. Here, we don't have any of that to apply. For a subdivision.
Yeah.
Mr.
That's
Sherman.
not exactly true. So parks is a permitted use in the AR zone. So to that argument, I would counter that the zoning has already assessed park rec use as an appropriate use. What would have to happen is a special use permit, so it would come back to the planning board if they didn't change the zoning. So in that way, you're just looking at it from a subdivision standpoint.
Right, but I think while the use is there, there's nothing in there about what that actually means in terms of development, where if you're talking residential, you have lot size, you have separation for septic and well and all that other stuff that's not in there for parks.
Right.
Or parking limits, or number of parking spaces, or.
Which we don't have any of that.
Carl, Mr. Sherman wanted to say something.
Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for making all those points, because I don't want to speak for all of my neighbors, but that is a big concern. When speaking to Marvin and Allison Pritz, they specifically said that this donation is to replace what was meant to be done on Crumbs Corners, which we know was mostly ball fields. And this will be, if they want to call it a park, but it will be public. So there will be parking, and this has to be a public road. So without any plans back there, how can the zoning and a variance be granted on this flag lot when we don't know what it's going to service? And worst case scenario, you have to think that it's going to have to service the vast community as a public park with buses going in and out for the recreational fields, trucks and trailers with mowers on them, emergency vehicles. Again, if there has to be sidewalks and bike paths. So these are our big concerns on how we're going to squeeze a road in there.
I will just say, I don't want to come off as thinking this is a bad site for this, because I think, you know, with all the conversations that still have to happen, this is really typical. I coached travel soccer for about 10 years, and I think I've been to more little parks with soccer fields, athletic fields and stuff. There's the odds of there being, unless there's something else going on here that's special, the odds of there being buses is very low, I'm gonna guess. And it's gonna be people coming in on weekends with their cars to, you know, go to the fields to play, and then probably some local practices in the afternoons. I don't know what other things have been discussed beyond that, but I know that.
There, the other thing is the donation had constraints that they planned on it as well, like. You have, if you read the plan, like limitations on lights and things like that, then we need to factor into this as well. We should read that, like if you haven't read the minutes, the meeting. So that needs to factor, and that would limit lots of the kinds of things. That would be an issue, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure the full scope that they're planning to put as a deed restriction, but
Yeah,
like Linda said, the Pritz plan to, if the donation moves forward, they're planning to put restrictions like that against the property, so the town wouldn't be able to do XYZ.
like time, how long, like not
Yeah.
in the evening, things like that.
Yeah.
So, that we need to fix, so we don't have to worry about big lights.
Yeah.
And signage and probably things like that.
But we don't know what their restrictions are. Do we?
They were proposed in the presentations. I think
Yeah.
that was sent, I think that was sent.
Yeah, and I believe there's also a FAQ that they put out as well that answered 40 plus questions or something like that.
Was that meeting night, I didn't reread it.
I can ask town board members to give me more links, and I'll forward that to you as soon as I get it
so we
tomorrow.
We can look through it there.
Yeah.
And take that into consideration. All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right. So I think that gets us through that. I don't have the agenda sitting here.
Unless
Are we ready to go? Are we ready to go to what? Well, it was here. The next business was that the resolution and the FEAF. It was in the top paragraph up here. Town boards asked for comments by April 3rd, so we still got our April Fool's meeting to finish it up on.
Okay.
All right, so we need to get our inputs to Neil's by the 26th, and he'll put it together for us. All right,
Or would it be advantageous to have us go through some of this? While you're here,
we can if you want. We got the training I've got on vernal pools only takes about 10 minutes or so.
and that was great. I mean, it really answered a lot of my questions.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Except how do you get a test? See if you have
you actually apply to DEC. There is a form on their website
Is there?
that if you think you've got one, you can fill it out and see if you
Send
can
them a
get their
sample?
attention. Well, I don't know. They actually, I think, have to come out and look for the egg masses and that sort of stuff, and then come back in the summertime and see if there's actual live
Had me
little
at
critters.
tree class. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I think I
Right.
heard them. That's beavers anyway. Okay, so do you wanna go? Sorry.
My brain is,
Right, okay.
Okay.
I think I'd rather deal with the,
With the training and take a look at it on your own and then.
no, the other way. I really would rather, I think I learned better by discussion.
Okay,
So,
Okay.
so having a look at not the vernal thing, but the
right,
other one,
yeah,
if you don't mind.
no, but that's fine, I went long there about my copy of it,
I do too, I like frogs too.
yeah,
Snakes
that's
not so much.
fine.
Last project I worked on at Parks. Was down by the Hudson River and it had an old gravel road that. Had a giant puddle on it that got declared. Right.
No way, oh gosh.
So you had to build a new road.
Think,
You. Couldn't run traffic through.
So do we wanna, the first couple sections in here seem pretty straightforward, right? I think, or do you wanna just start through
Yeah.
and see what you got for
Let's-
questions? Do you have a
Sure.
copy of it there, Bart?
I'm not sure, I didn't print everything off that you guys sent me, because I read
This is my hard copy of it if you want.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
so section A, B, and C, we can't do. Okay. So what do we really have to answer? In this question? In this questionnaire? Finding just a,
So I recommend pulling up the FEAF.
yeah, that part one.
Yeah.
Yeah, part one of the FAF and just go through section by section. And then if you see anything like what Jeff was concerned about, like say traffic access or something, go to the applicable section and just say, what
Maybe
your concerns are.
this or what are the considerations to it and do it in a. He's got the sections broken down here already, like essentially walks you
Something
through.
totally different.
This is
See-
the FBAF.
Right,
Yeah.
He wants us to use to
Right.
fill out, use as a Word doc.
Oh, by going through this.
right.
I gotcha.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
No, no.
I didn't know that until
That's
2
fine.
minutes
Good thing we
ago
went through
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's the idea, is to walk your way down through it, and then if you've got specific issues. Pull up the question number or something like
gotcha.
that, so
Okay,
fill
like-
out.
Yeah.
Page 4, I'm hoping my printing numbers are the same, it's like D1G, does the proposed action include any new non-residential construction? And it says no, well, that's unknown, I mean, in season, you're gonna be mowing this thing twice a week.
And you're gonna have to somehow get back to it.
Either a mower's gonna have to be there, or you're gonna be hauling a mower,
Well,
and,
What
okay,
page?
wait. If you're looking at what I'm
Page
looking at,
does the proposed act D1G,
Okay.
Right.
does the proposed action
Which is on page 4 of the FEA.
right.
include new
If you
non-residential
bring up
construction?
your computer.
okay,
otherwise
wait,
they're-
that's not what I have.
What do you got?
I have, does the project include new residential uses?
It doesn't include residential uses, but
Okay, so, G,
right below that, non-residential construction.
Okay,
including
gotcha.
expansion.
Sorry.
So, yeah, I mean, you don't know, is there gonna be a comfort station, restroom in normal speak?
It
There
would
someday?
have to be.
that's a
Yeah,
good question.
or is it gonna, well, not necessarily, there's lots of places that run
Yeah.
like this,
Well, I know that.
that run porta potties seasonally. So,
Good point.
I mean, that's something that's gonna have to get answered in the future, but.
Can I use this?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. take
it's,
that with
it's
you.
something that should not be a definite no.
Right,
Okay,
And like
Yeah,
H
and
right
this-
below it, does it include construction or the activities will result in impoundment of any liquids. I don't
That's enough.
think so.
Well,
Cause
are
it's
we gonna
got,
have
well,
to
it's got
bring-
city
rename-
water.
Well, wouldn't we?
There will, but it won't be an impoundment. It won't be standing
That's
water.
different.
Yeah,
It's not like you're drilling wells, and you gotta catch the drill mud and that sort of stuff. And it does have city water available to it, so you don't need to drill a well if you
Okay.
want water service back there.
Okay, okay.
let's see, am I still in D? I love these forms. 'Cause wow, they're putting the letter at the top of all of them.
Yeah, go back
So
5
D-
pages to find.
D2, for example.
Uh-huh.
A says, does a proposed action including any excavation? We're not dealing with mining, dredging
Right.
or such like that, but you're going to have to get some sort of access road across the lot to get back there.
Well, if you go to E under D2 on
Okay.
page 6,
All
will
right,
the proposed action disturb more than 1 acre and create stormwater runoff either from new point sources or non-point sources? And that, I mean, if there's gonna be any kind of development, is gonna be a yes.
Yes. Right,
So I think that, this is gonna be used for the acquisition, which is gonna have public discussion on it.
Right.
I think if those aren't yeses in there, it's gonna be a trigger for people, and probably rightfully so.
All right, so let's go back to something you said way earlier. Did I hear you say that even a gravel road is now considered asphalt in terms of road? Or no?
It's when you do your calculations,
Okay,
now it's DEC considers it
impervious.
okay,
impervious,
so this,
you don't gain anything by doing gravel
all
in
right,
terms of stormwater.
so this is. Permanent. There you go.
That was on the same project, yes, the. Bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue on like. D2, I think, page 7, will a proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels? Or generate substantial? Substantial, I don't know what substantial
It's
is,
not-
but
it's
there's
very
gonna be,
subjective, yeah.
yeah, there's gonna be some, and then. There's gonna be the question of parking, and, when you look at
Right.
parking, it's gonna depend in the end on how many fields happen, but. You're gonna wanna. There is gonna be runoff from that, there is gonna be parking, you have fields, and you have more than one field, you can figure out how many parents are gonna be driving to the games at. One time, you're gonna, and I think it's
Right.
something that should get looked at.
Well,
And
when
an
you,
overflow.
when you look at the way. When you look at. Would be facetious to say modern math. What's the? Does anybody have the data on what the traffic is like now? On that road?
I don't know if the
Right.
county does. I mean, I know they just came out with their transportation plan.
Is. One red thing. Is muted.
Unmute Mr. Sherman, see what. You live on that road, right? Yeah, you're right next door.
Yeah, and like I said, I'd love to have you come out. I know you were a little confused on the addresses last time, and come take a look. But that is another big question that we have. Will there be a traffic study? Because that road is already very heavily traveled from 96, people getting through. It's a pretty busy and unsafe road as it is now. So will there be some sort of traffic study to decide if it's, even going to be safe to put a road in there to access this sporting complex? And then will they also do some sort of noise study? Because we don't have a lot of noise right now. And we'd like to know what that's going to look like with having a park and, sporting fields behind our house, traffic in and out, and things like that. So while you were on that topic, I just wanted to ask that question and point that out.
Do people go, walk along? Sorry, Tyler, do people walk along the road a lot?
We have a few people that walk along the road, but I mean, if you went down through there and interviewed them, they'll tell you how unsafe it is. A couple ladies that walk the road all the time, they are in full-on orange traffic vests with walking sticks and things like that. So that's the other concern is children and people are supposed to be able to get here, and they're going to be walking and biking. We don't have shoulders on Cold Springs Road where we are. It's the road and it's very steep ditches and things like that. So how are people supposed to get out there? You know, this trail people have talked about, I think, is a little bit of a pipe dream because it's state owned. And in the last planning board meeting, they stated how it is state owned. And if it came to fruition, it would be quite a while and quite a lot of money.
What he's commenting on is the state owns an old rail line
Yeah.
that comes across Trumansburg Creek and I think gets in to the neighboring property to the west. It doesn't actually meet up with the back of the Fritz property that.
No.
I could see, it's like 4170, I think, or whatever, ends in 70, that property goes all the way down to the.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's I think a little bit more of a pipe dream to make this a little more enticing. But you have to think realistically, if this is going to happen now, people have to come out South Street around Podunk and up through Cold Springs or Halseyville. And like I said, there's no shoulders, and it's not safe for bikes and walking out there essentially. So you'd have to create that infrastructure, and then who pays for that infrastructure? So there's a lot to think about. Especially just in the entrance wise of getting to this, you know, sports park.
Well, the other lady,
Good.
Hi, it's Jill, by the way.
okay, sorry, okay.
That's okay. That's okay. My mom had to make it different. So like I said, I've lived on Cold Springs Road for 24 years, almost 25 years. And I live just kitty corner from the Shermans. And I walked that road every day down to Jim Meeker's place. I was his partner for 14 years. So to go back and forth on that road, you'd have farm equipment, you have motorcycles that go extremely way too fast up that road. We have a lot of loud trucks that go by. And again, you have to be cautious because, you know, if you're on the side of the road, just be aware of what's coming and what's behind you. So we also have a lot of animals. We have a lot of deer. We've even had a Fisher cat in the area. So, I mean, there's different things that you really have to watch for on that road. So, yeah, it's a nice area, but at the same point, I'm a little concerned about the kids and having somebody come out, and there's not going to be a lot of notice if somebody comes flying up that road.
Is the speed limit 55 there?
Excuse me?
Is the speed limit 55 there?
45.
45.
Yeah, they reduced that to 45. For that zone, right? Just that stretch.
Right, exactly.
But that is by no means enforced.
No.
Right.
Slow. What was that? It's not slow enough.
Okay. Thank
It's also
you,
a town.
both of you, for your comments.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening.
It's also a town road. It's not a state or county road. So I'm not exactly sure at that point who has the authority to change speed limits.
Or to change speed limits.
Yeah.
I don't.
And or to put in like bike paths. I don't know if that's something that the DPW can do on themselves.
It's hard with the ditches.
The one thing I
Yeah.
think would be really helpful for people, and maybe for the town board too, is to go visit some of the other. I don't know how many people have had kids in travel soccer or anything. Football ends up at schools all the time. I don't know, you know, that's just the reality of it. But for travel soccer, there's a bunch of other little fields around that you get a good idea of what they get used like. assuming this is gonna be sports fields, and I think it would be a good way for, town residents to get an idea of what the impact would actually be, because a lot of them are stuck down little driveways behind people's houses and things, because that's where the land was available.
Are there many of those around here, do you know,
There's a lot.
around here?
Yeah. It's almost every community has a field. Some of them are attached to schools, but there's a lot of them that are out on somebody's old farm field. And some of them are on big roads, some of them, I think it's down in Spencer has one that's you go through a bunch of like little side streets and things, and it's back behind
Okay.
people's houses, so it's really very.
We need to make our burial field green. If we sold it.
Yes.
So for something like that, if it doesn't fit exactly within one of those sections or subsections, I think section F, additional information would be a great spot for something like that to go in.
Yeah. What about pesticide? I mean, yeah, pesticide,
Herbicides.
herbicide and pesticides.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say my personal opinion is that you don't wanna play on a soccer field with clover.
Mhm.
Especially not when people get older and get better,
Yeah.
because it catches your cleats. As you-
Yeah.
I'd rather play on gravel than play on clover.
Wow,
Wow.
It's interesting.
you're a big guy street.
Well,
But that would be a concern.
Well, there is a herbicide
Is
section.
it? Oh,
Right.
is there? Okay.
There's a Q in the same section. There's also a noise piece. Both on page 8.
Oh, yeah. that's-
Keep going and.
Yeah, okay.
And I know nobody wants to spray, but it's just occasionally it gets overwhelming.
Right.
There's no existing damage.
Is it, what was your about, there's not gonna be any lighting allowed, is that correct?
They said security, I think.
Yes, I think they
Which
have.
I think if there's buildings or something,
Time the lighting.
I don't think there's any real need for it. I mean, somebody, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
I don't know, if somebody's gonna close the gate at the end of the day or something, so people aren't in there, but I mean,
Yeah.
if there's no lighting, there's no reason for anybody to get
Right.
Right.
in the dark.
So waste management. Would that's a minimal, but it has to be trash cans. Right? But then the
Yeah.
neighbors still have a problem.
Yeah, it goes with the Cochran Station thing, there's not. Again, looking at the other places, there might be 1 or 2 barrels where really, I mean, you're talking.
If you don't.
Carry in, carry out.
Yeah, right, they do that.
It works pretty good. Actually.
we want to give Mr. Sherman another round.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Just to address some of your questions initially, and you can get the facts from the board, but speaking to Marvin and Allison Pritz, one of the stipulations they have is a dusk to dawn policy with donating the land. However, keep in mind that dusk is quite late during the summer with activities and things. And there is no building on that property is one of the stipulations other than restrooms. So it does sound like restrooms will eventually be built on that property. Again, this has come from multiple people and Marvin and Allison Pritz. So we've addressed our safety concerns as well. That's another thing that there isn't noted there, how the park will be monitored. Will there be a gate that it closes at a certain time? Who will take care of that? Or, will it be patrolled? There also is a stipulation on no stadium lighting, however, safety lighting. But, safety lighting is going to have to light up a good portion of the property as well as the parking lots. And will those safety lights be on all night long? So those are directly from their mouths. And I just wanted to give you that while you were considering things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And I understood when the town board was here to present this to us and that they were really aiming this at just the acquisition. But it's fair game to ask, you know, some of this to consider,
Sure,
just to make it functional, some of this is gonna have to come into play.
right. And this is one of those cases where we do need to take it closely, because once it's ours, and then it's our,
Yeah.
you know, the taxpayers have to cover the cost of whatever, whether we develop it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's monitoring it, who's putting up the chain at night, yeah,
right.
pay for it. Yeah.
Neil's.
Yeah.
Give him a candle, torch, or hat.
You got anything else?
No, I think that was the first part.
Okay, all right. This has been helpful for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll spend about 5 minutes or so on the vernal pool stuff. For me, it came out of this DEC magazine is where it comes from. Their conservation magazine comes out a few times a year, and that's where the article came from.
Okay.
The info in it. And the real enlightening part for me as I got into this thing was to say that, you know, we have around here, we have a lot of areas and fields that get wet and then dry out and that sort of stuff. But the real driver behind this to make it functional as a vernal pool is that the salamanders and the wood frogs and that sort of stuff, the adults have to have an intact woodland to live in.
Right,
They only use the pool strictly for breeding and for the young ones to develop in.
Mhm.
And so if you don't have a woodland it's either attached to where this puddle is, or it's physically inside the woods, its chances of being an actual vernal pool is pretty much non-existent.
Mhm.
okay,
And that was really enlightening to me to realize that, you know, all these open field water spots aren't something that we would need to consider this in.
Yeah.
And
okay,
these will be considered as part of the DEC's evaluation of the property. So really for us as the planning board, this is going to come in with that DEC evaluation. You know, it's in here now that if they supposedly have an active list, and we are actually in the Great Lakes section
okay,
because our area drains to the Great Lake, to Ontario, which is part of the Great Lakes. But I spent about a half an hour poking around online and I could not find that list of current vernal pools for anywhere in the state. So if one of you can stumble across or figure out how to get to it, let me know. You know, there's supposedly an active list with the geographic location of
Their
it,
resource fund.
where the pools are at.
Yeah, but I don't know if it has
It's.
that detail yet. I think right now it's just.
Well, I'm sure it
informational.
does include private properties and that sort of stuff.
Around here. Yeah.
Well, the one that we looked at recently, remember where the guy split the property on,
I would say maybe EPA, but they're.
Waterberg Road?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
that 30 acres that
Yeah,
looked like it was
let's,
mostly wetland.
yeah,
That might be a candidate piece of property because it's already been wooded for a long time, and if there are pools in there. The other place surprisingly that may actually have some is the Salo Preserve.
Mhm.
Because when you walk up through the Salo Preserve, there's a bunch of wet spots up in there that I think
Right.
come and go.
Or the
And that's-
campgrounds.
Yeah, and it's definitely wooded in that. So there are a couple areas around here that could potentially be on the list.
Mm.
And that's why I was trying to get to the list to see if there was any physically within the town of Ulysses that
Yeah,
are
right.
already designated,
Yeah.
just out of interest. So like I say, if one of you can figure out how to find it, I spent about a half hour digging around there and kept going in with different searches and did not succeed. But that's not
Yeah,
unusual for me,
right.
did not find what I'm looking for, what I would think
Oh,
would be
that's gotta
obvious.
Huge.
What was the definition of the vernal pools again?
Okay, the definition of a vernal
That's-
pool in here means a naturally occurring or purposefully created depression, wetland containing hydrophilic vegetation that is geographically isolated from and lacking in connection to a permanent surface waters. Vernal pools temporarily hold water during the spring, summer and or fall. And typically dry up for a period of time during the year. Vernal pools do not support permanent adult fish populations, yet they provide essential habitat for amphibian, invertebrate, and other species. In the rest of the pages in here, the reason that these salamanders and frogs and that actually succeed in breeding in these pools is because the fish, there's no fish there to eat the egg or the young
Yeah.
fry in that.
Okay.
So something that doesn't have connection to the stream, so that you would have fish there, is what they need to protect them. So it's a piece of real estate they found that they can successfully breed in.
Those seasonal.
Yeah, seasonal pond and that, but the adults need a woodland to live in, because the wood frogs, obviously, they go hang out in the trees, and the salamanders generally hide in burrows and that sort of stuff for other animals.
I didn't notice, is there any like size limitation? to it?
There is a set of tables in there that,
Did
That-
we have it?
well, no, I copied and pasted in here, the bottom part of this. We're in the Great Lakes region, so it says 2 or more spotted salamander or wood frog egg masses. There's no physical
Physical
dimension to the
size,
pool.
yeah, right.
You know, it could be a 20-foot diameter mud puddle, as long as it functions for what they need, or 200 foot across. I don't think it makes any difference. You're spotting a road there.
There's actually a bunch behind Trumansburg Schools back on the 11th cross country trail, where there's a bunch of really small ones, but they're interconnected. They slowly drain away.
Does it
Yeah.
say like any like requirements for how long they have had to have existed to be considered a vernal pool, or
Well, the
like
deep-
can a puddle that was
Created or disappeared.
just appeared and there happens to be some
Well,
frogs chilling in it?
For, to be,
Speaking of
well,
weather, the tree fell over.
Yeah,
right.
well, for the DEC to have taken the time to go out there and actually look for the egg masses in the early spring, like March, April.
Okay, so there is like
timeframe.
a time frame.
There is a
process.
time frame, and if they, and then they have to come back again in like June, July, and look if there's actual hatchlings and that sort of stuff in the water to determine if it's a functional pool.
Oh,
you
so
know.
there needs to be like a survivability.
Right, they're
Qualification.
right, and that sort of stuff, and so that's why I put these 1 through 6 down here on the first page of this. That's the actual what determines, and 2, 5, and 6 are the ones that apply to us, because we're in the Great Lakes region. And so it's so many egg masses and that sort of stuff of the, you know, whether it's salamanders or it's the tree frogs. And then there's some of the ones like these tiger salamander is sort of a Long Island critter. But that's one of the like the endangered species type of these. And so if there's any of those anywhere,
Yeah,
then it becomes, but interestingly, the DEC does not publish the geographic locations of pools that have the rare ones in it. So people aren't stopping off there looking for it.
Yeah.
But they do consider them internally when they're doing their evaluations on the wetlands and that sort of stuff. So this is now part of the wetlands evaluation. When they go through, like. He's applied now to the DEC to get an evaluation, and you go to the state DEC first, and they go through, Mr. Doolittle has. And they look and decide if you have any wetlands by their definitions on the property. And if it comes back with a positive, then you gotta go to the regional DEC and work with them to figure out the actual delineation of the wetland and the 100-foot setback and all this sort of stuff. So for us as the planning board, it's just asking the questions, say, has this been done? If it looked like there's something on there. You know, if it hasn't, unfortunately, it could be a 4 to 5 month delay for somebody because they didn't do that. So I'm hoping that the planning department, when somebody pops up with something is, it looks like you're already sort of asking them, have you considered this? So that they can get the clock running. That was Niels and I sat down with Mr. Doolittle and, you know, suggested that you go out and get this started just because of the timeframes. And it's eventually gonna come in. But for us, it's just knowing so that it's out there. That's why I gave you the definitions of what they're looking for and what qualifies, just to give us a feel. And then also, this article out of here was good. It went into the details and that, and how they're looking at it, so. Anyway, 9 o'clock,
Good timing.
good timing.
We
You
wanna stay for another
wanna
hour?
pick up the slack
Yeah.
for Mo and give us a go home?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay,
Awesome.
I moved to,
Make a motion. sign.
yeah.
I've made enough of a mistake.
No, no, no.
This is the adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
We're out of here.